I can still feel the sting of his hands shoving me to the floor, the coldness in his eyes as he threw me out like garbage. This is what my 61st birthday has come to. My own son treating me like I'm nothing. Like I haven't spent my entire life loving him, raising him, sacrificing for him. And now, because of that wretched wife of his, he can't even stand the sight of me. Laura, even her name makes my blood boil. From the moment Henry brought her home, I knew she was trouble. The way she looked at me, like I was just an obstacle in her path. The way she whispered in Henry's ear, turning him against me little by little. I warned him not to marry her, begged him to see through her manipulations, but he was blinded by lust, by the idea that she loved him unconditionally. The only thing that woman loves is herself. And now, because of her, I've lost everything: my son, my grandchildren, the family I've dedicated my life to. Cast aside like yesterday's trash. As I sit there wallowing, a car pulls up beside me. The window rolls down, revealing the concerned face of my best friend, Nicole. "Megan, what happened? What are you doing out here?" she asks, her voice laced with worry. I can barely choke out the words. "Henry, he kicked me out, said I was crazy and that it was his house now." Nicole's eyes widen in shock, then narrow in anger. "He did what? On your birthday? Oh, honey, get in the car. You're coming home with me." I climb into the passenger seat, my body numb as Nicole drives. She keeps glancing over at me, her brow furrowed. "This is unacceptable, Megan. Henry can't treat you like this. Something has to be done." I shake my head sadly. "What can I do, Mags? He's a grown man. He's made his choice." Nicole purses her lips, a determined glint in her eye. "Maybe so, but that doesn't mean he gets to get away with it. You're his mother, for God's sake. It's time Henry and that wicked wife of his learned that there are consequences for their actions." I turn to her, confused. "What are you saying?" A slow smile spreads across Nicole's face. "I'm saying, my dear, that it's time for a little revenge, and I know just the person to help us get it." As we speed into the night, I can't help but feel a spark of hope. I feel a flicker of something I haven't felt in a long time: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I can make Henry and Laura pay for the pain they've caused. Maybe karma will finally catch up to them. The day started off well enough. It was my birthday, and despite everything that had happened with Henry, I was determined to make the most of it. I spent the morning tidying up the house, putting up a few decorations, and preparing a special dinner. I even bought a cake from the bakery down the street, the one Henry always loved as a kid. Around noon, I called Henry, my heart fluttering with a mix of hope and nerves. To my surprise, he actually answered. "Hey, Mom, what's up?" His tone was neutral, guarded. I took a deep breath. "Well, I was wondering if you, Laura, and the kids would like to come over for dinner tonight. It's my birthday, and I thought it would be nice to spend some time together as a family." There was a long pause. I could hear muffled voices in the background, like he was discussing it with someone. Finally, he spoke. "Yeah, okay, we can do that. What time?" Relief washed over me. "How about 5 p.m.? I'm making your favorite lasagna." "Sure, see you then," he said, hanging up before I could say anything else. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. By the time 5 p.m. rolled around, everything was perfect. The lasagna was bubbling in the oven, the table was set, and the cake was proudly displayed on the counter. Right on time, the doorbell rang. I practically ran to answer it, a huge smile on my face. But the moment I opened the door, my heart sank. Henry stood there with a scowl etched on his face. Beside him was Laura, her lips curled into a sneer. The kids were nowhere to be seen. "Where are the children?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Laura let out a harsh laugh. "We decided it was best they didn't come. Wouldn't want them exposed to any more of your toxic influence." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Toxic influence? What are you talking about?" She stepped forward, jabbing a finger at me. "Don't play dumb, Megan. We all know what a terrible mother you were. The way you turned Henry against his own father, the constant guilt-tripping and manipulation. It's no wonder he wants nothing to do with you." Tears stung my eyes. I looked to Henry, silently pleading for him to defend me. But he just stood there, his arms crossed, saying nothing. "That's not true," I managed to choke out. "I've always loved and supported Henry. I would never do anything to hurt him." Laura's eyes flashed with anger. "Spare us the martyr act. You're just a selfish, vindictive woman who can't stand that Henry has moved on with his life, that he chose me over you." Something inside me snapped. Before I knew what I was doing, I lunged forward, ready to slap that smug look off her face. But Henry stepped between us, grabbing my wrist in a painful grip. "Don't you dare touch my wife," he growled. "You're pathetic, you know that? Coming up with this whole birthday charade, trying to worm your way back in. Well, it's not going to work. We're done with you." With that, he shoved me backward, sending me stumbling. I caught myself on the doorframe, tears now flowing freely down my cheeks. "Henry, please," I whispered. "I'm your mother." But he just shook his head, his eyes cold. "Not anymore. Come on, Laura, let's go." I watched helplessly as they turned and walked away, slamming the door behind them. The sound echoed through the empty house, a brutal finality to it. And there I stood, alone on my birthday, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in the aftermath of Henry and Laura's cruelty. Minutes, hours, it all blurred together. The pain in my chest was unlike anything I'd ever felt before, a deep aching void that threatened to swallow me whole. Eventually, I managed to close the door, my hands shaking. I stumbled to the couch, collapsing onto the cushions as sobs racked my body. How could he do this to me? My own son treating me like I was nothing, like I hadn't spent my entire life loving and caring for him. The sound of my phone ringing jolted me out of my despair. I glanced at the screen, seeing Nicole's name. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, not wanting to burden her with my problems. But the thought of facing this alone was too much to bear. I answered, my voice thick with tears. "Hello. Megan, what's wrong? Did something happen with Henry?" The concern in her voice was my undoing. I broke down, the whole sordid story spilling out between gasps and sobs. Nicole listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. "That's it," she said firmly when I finished. "This has gone too far. Henry and Laura can't keep treating you like this. It's time for them to face some consequences." I sniffled, wiping my eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean it's time for a little payback. They think they can just walk all over you, but they've got another thing coming. You're a strong woman, Megan. It's time to start acting like it." Her words ignited a spark within me, a flicker of anger amidst the pain. She was right. I couldn't just sit here and wallow. I needed to do something to take back control. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier now. "What do you have in mind?" I could practically hear Nicole's grin through the phone. "Meet me at the diner in an hour. I've got someone I want you to meet. Trust me, he's going to be a big help." An hour later, I was sitting across from Nicole in a booth at the local diner. She had a mischievous glint in her eye as she sipped her coffee. "So who is this mystery person?" I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. As if on cue, the bell above the door jingled. Nicole waved at someone behind me. There he is now. I turned, my eyes widening as a tall, broad-shouldered man approached our table. He had a rugged, no-nonsense look about him, like someone who had seen his fair share of trouble. "Megan, meet my brother Jack," Nicole said, gesturing for him to sit. "He's a private investigator." Jack nodded at me, his gaze assessing. "Nicole filled me in on your situation. I'm sorry to hear about what your son and his wife did. That's rough." I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant even as the pain twisted in my gut. "It is what it is, but Nicole seems to think you can help." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "I can. In my line of work, I've learned that everyone has secrets, skeletons in their closet. And from what Nicole's told me, I'm betting your daughter-in-law has more than a few." A tingle of anticipation ran down my spine. What are you saying? Jack smiled, slow and dangerous. I'm saying, let me dig into Laura's past. If there's dirt to be found, I'll find it. And once we have that ammunition, well, let's just say karma has a way of coming back around. I sat back, my mind reeling with the possibilities. Could this really work? Could I finally make Henry and Laura pay for what they'd done? Looking into Jack's confident eyes, I made my decision. I'm in, let's do this. He nodded, satisfied. Excellent. Give me a week. I'll be in touch, he said as he stood to leave. I felt a new sense of purpose and determination. They thought they could break me, but they were wrong. It was time for revenge. The week crawled by, each day feeling like an eternity of waiting and wondering. I tried to keep myself busy, throwing myself into cleaning the house, running errands, anything to distract myself from the constant churning of my thoughts. What would Jack find? Would it be enough to bring Henry and Laura down? Nicole checked in on me daily, offering words of encouragement and support. She was the only thing keeping me sane, the only person who truly understood the depth of my pain and anger. Finally, on the 7th day, my phone rang. It was Jack. Megan, it's me. I've got something. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? My heart leaped into my throat. Of course, I'll be there. I arrived at Jack's office with 20 minutes to spare, my nerves jingling. Nicole was already there, pacing the small waiting area. She gave me a tight hug when I entered. Are you ready for this? She asked, searching my face. I nodded, steeling myself, as ready as I'll ever be. Jack emerged from his office, a grim expression on his face. Come on in, ladies. We settled into the chairs opposite his desk, the air thick with tension. Jack opened a manila folder, spreading out a series of documents and photographs. So I did some digging into Laura's background, he began, tapping the papers. And let me tell you, this woman is no saint. He slid a document toward me. First off, she has a criminal record embezzlement from her previous job. She managed to avoid jail time, but it wasn't pretty. I stared at the paper, a mug shot of Laura staring back at me. She looked younger, but those cold eyes were unmistakable. But that's not all, Jack continued, his voice grave. I also found out that she's a person of interest in the death of her ex-boyfriend. Nicole gasped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What do you mean? I managed to ask, my voice shaking. Jack handed me a newspaper clipping. 3 years ago, her ex was found dead under mysterious circumstances. The police suspected foul play, but they could never prove anything. Laura was the last person to see him alive. I scanned the article, my eyes catching on phrases like suspicious death and ongoing investigation. My mind reeled, trying to reconcile this information with the woman my son had married. So what does this mean? Nicole asked, voicing the question in my mind. It means, Jack said, that we have the ammunition we need. We can use this information to confront Laura and Henry. They need to know that we're not backing down. Jack leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. It means we have leverage. If this information comes to light, Laura's life as she knows it would be over. Her reputation, her marriage, everything. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. So what do we do now? A slow smile spread across Jack's face. Now we use it. We let Laura know that we have this information and that if she doesn't want it to go public, she needs to convince Henry to make things right with you. Nicole nodded, her eyes gleaming. And if she refuses? Jack shrugged. Then we go to the police. We let them reopen the investigation into her ex's death. One way or another, Laura will face the consequences of her actions. I sat there, stunned, trying to process it all. Could it really be this simple? Could I really make Laura pay for what she's done, for turning Henry against me? Looking at the determination on Nicole and Jack's faces, I felt a surge of strength. They believed in me, believed that I deserved justice, and for the first time since that awful birthday, I believed it too. Let's do it, I said, my voice steady. Let's make them pay." Jack grinned, a predatory gleam in his eye. "Excellent. Give me a day to put everything in motion. By this time tomorrow, Laura won't know what hit her." As we left the office, Nichols squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing, Megan. Don't ever doubt that." I squeezed back, feeling a sense of purpose and righteous anger. They had picked the wrong woman to mess with. It was time for Laura to learn that lesson the hard way. True to his word, Jack called me the next day. "It's done," he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. I sent all the information to Laura, along with a message letting her know that if she doesn't want it to go public, she needs to convince Henry to make amends with you. I felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with nervousness. Do you think it will work? Only one way to find out. But trust me, with the dirt we have on her, she'd be crazy not to comply. I hung up, my mind racing. Would Laura really cave? Would she really force Henry to apologize and make things right? A part of me dared to hope, even as another part whispered that it was too good to be true. Hours passed with no word. I paced my living room, jumping at every sound, convinced it was the doorbell or the phone. But as evening fell, there was still nothing. I was about to give up and go to bed when there was a pounding at the door. My heart in my throat, I opened it to find Henry standing there, his face full of fury. "What the hell did you do?" he snarled, pushing past me into the house. I stumbled back, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" He turned on me, his eyes blazing. "Don't play dumb. Laura told me everything about the private investigator, about you digging up her past. What? You thought you could blackmail her into making me forgive you?" I stood my ground, lifting my chin. I didn't blackmail anyone. I just let her know that her actions have consequences, that she can't destroy my life and get away with it. Henry let out a harsh laugh. "Destroy your life? Are you serious? You're the one trying to destroy our marriage, our family, first with your constant guilt-tripping and manipulation, and now this." Anger surged through me, hot and bright. "I'm not the one who turned you against me, Henry. That was all Laura. She's poisoned you. Can't you see that? She's a criminal, a liar, maybe even a murderer." For a moment, Henry looked stunned, then his face hardened. "You're unbelievable. You really think I'm going to believe your crazy accusations over my own wife, the mother of my children?" "They're not accusations, they're facts. Jack found proof." "I don't care what your detective friend found," Henry roared. "Laura is my wife, and I trust her. I love her, and nothing you say or do is going to change that." Tears stung my eyes, blurring my vision. "So that's it then? You're choosing her over me, your own mother?" Henry's jaw clenched. "You made that choice for me the moment you decided to pull this stunt. I'm done with you, Mom. Done with your lies, your schemes, all of it." He turned to leave, and panic seized me. I couldn't lose him, not like this. "Henry, please," but he was already gone, slamming the door behind him with a finality that shook me to my core. I sank to the floor, sobs tearing from my throat. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The truth was supposed to set me free, to bring Henry back to me. Instead, it had only driven him further away. Through my tears, I heard my phone ringing. It was Jack. I answered, my voice thick and shaky. "Megan, what happened? Did it work?" A bitter laugh escaped me. No, it didn't work. Henry, he's gone. He chose Laura." There was a pause, then Jack spoke, his tone determined. "Then we move on to plan B. We go to the police and get them to reopen the investigation into Laura's ex's death." I shook my head even though Jack couldn't see me. "What's the point? It won't change anything. Henry's made his choice." "This isn't about Henry anymore," Jack said firmly. "This is about justice, about making sure Laura pays for what she's done, one way or another." I closed my eyes, exhaustion and grief washing over me. Could I do it? Could I really destroy my son's wife, the mother of my grandchildren? But then I remembered the look in Henry's eyes, the venom in his voice, and the way Laura had smirked, so smug and self-satisfied. They had brought this on themselves, and now they would face the consequences. Okay, I whispered, a new resolve hardening in my chest. Let's do it. Let's make her pay. The next few days were a blur of activity. Jack and I gathered all the evidence he had collected, organizing it into a neat package to present to the police. Nickel was a constant presence, offering support and encouragement when my resolve wavered. Finally, the day arrived. We walked into the police station, heads held high, ready to blow the lid off Laura's sordid past. The detective listened intently as we laid out our case, his brow furrowing as he examined the documents and photographs. When we finished, he sat back with a grim expression on his face. "This is serious stuff," he said, tapping the file. "If what you're saying is true, we have grounds to reopen the investigation into Miss Wilson's ex-boyfriend's death." I felt a surge of vindication. It is true, every word of it. The detective nodded. "All right then, leave this with me. I'll get the ball rolling." We left the station with a sense of anticipation thrumming through me. It was really happening. Laura was finally going to face the music. 3 days later, I received a call from Jack. "Turn on the news," he said, a note of triumph in his voice. I did as he said, my heart pounding as the anchor's face filled the screen. "Breaking news," she announced, her expression grave. Local woman Laura Berlin has been arrested in connection with the previously unsolved death of her ex-boyfriend Brian Cox. New evidence has come to light, prompting police to reopen the investigation. I watched, transfixed, as they showed footage of Laura being led out of her and Henry's house in handcuffs, her face a mask of shock and anger. Henry followed behind, looking stunned and lost. A fierce satisfaction burned in my chest. She was finally getting what she deserved. But my joy was short-lived. The news report went on to describe how Henry had to use their savings to post Laura's bail and hire a lawyer. It was a financial blow, one that would undoubtedly put a strain on their marriage. I should have felt guilty knowing that I had played a part in their hardship, but all I could think was that it served them right. They had brought this on themselves with their cruelty and lies. Over the next few weeks, I watched from afar as the drama unfolded. Laura's arrest made headlines, and the public was ruthless. People speculated about her involvement in her ex's death and what other secrets she might be hiding. Henry put on a brave face, standing by his wife in public, but I could see the toll it was taking on him. He looked haggard, worn down by the constant scrutiny and whispers. Part of me wanted to reach out, to offer comfort and support, but I hardened my heart. I reminded myself of how he had cast me aside, the vicious words he had hurled at me. He had made his bed, and now he would lie in it. One afternoon, as I was returning from the grocery store, I spotted a familiar figure on my doorstep. It was Henry, his shoulders slumped, his eyes red-rimmed. For a moment, I considered ignoring him, pretending I wasn't home, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I asked coldly as I approached, my arms laden with bags. Henry looked up, his expression a mix of exhaustion and desperation. "Mom, I need your help." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, now you need my help? What happened to being done with me and my schemes?" He flinched as if I'd struck him. I know I said some awful things, but this is bigger than that. Laura's in real trouble, Mom. The evidence against her is bad." A flicker of unease passed through me. "What are you saying?" Henry's voice broke. "I'm saying I don't know what to do. The lawyer fees alone are bankrupting us, and if Laura goes to prison, I can't raise the kids on my own. I need you, Mom, please." I stared at him, torn between the urge to comfort and the desire to lash out. He looked so broken, so defeated. But then I remembered the pain he had caused, the way he had abandoned me. I straightened my spine, my voice like ice. "You should have thought of that before you turned your back on me. I'm sorry, Henry, but you're on your own." With that, I brushed past him, ignoring his pleas and apologies. He had made his choice, and now he would live with the consequences. A few days after Henry's desperate visit, I received an unexpected call. It was Laura's mother, her voice tight with barely contained anger. "Megan, I know we've had our differences, but I need to ask a favor," she said, the words seeming to pain her. I felt a flicker of surprise. What kind of favor? "It's the kids. With everything going on with Laura's case, Henry's struggling to keep up. He needs a break. I was hoping you could take the children for the weekend." I hesitated, torn. On one hand, the thought of spending time with my grandchildren filled me with longing. It had been so long since I'd seen them. But on the other hand, the idea of doing anything to help Henry and Laura after everything they'd done galled me. "Please, Megan," Laura's mother pressed, as if sensing my reluctance. "I know you love those kids. They need some stability right now, and Lord knows they won't get it from Henry or Laura." I sighed, my resolve crumbling. She was right. Whatever issues I had with their parents, my grandchildren were innocent. They deserved better than to be caught in the middle of this mess. "All right," I agreed. "I'll take them for the weekend, but I'm doing this for them, not for Henry or Laura." "Of course. Thank you, Megan. I'll let Henry know to drop them off Friday evening." True to her word, Henry arrived on my doorstep that Friday with the kids in tow. He looked even worse than the last time I'd seen him, his face gaunt and shadowed. "Mom," he greeted me, his voice hoarse. "Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it." I nodded stiffly, my attention on the children. They looked up at me, their eyes wide and uncertain. "Grandma." My granddaughter cried, breaking into a smile. She rushed forward, wrapping her little arms around my waist. I hugged her back, blinking back sudden tears. "Hello, sweetheart. I've missed you." My grandson was more reserved, hovering by Henry's side. I knelt down, opening my arms. "Come here, buddy. It's okay." Slowly, he stepped into my embrace, his small body trembling. My heart ached for him, for both of them. Henry cleared his throat. "I'll pick them up Sunday evening. If anything comes up, just give me a call." I straightened, meeting his gaze coolly. "We'll be fine. Enjoy your weekend." With a final nod, he left, leaving me alone with the kids. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile. Who wants pizza for dinner? The weekend passed in a blur of laughter, games, and stories. For a little while, I was able to forget the drama and heartache, lost in the simple joy of being with my grandchildren. But all too soon, it was over. Henry arrived to collect the kids, his expression guarded as they gathered their things. My granddaughter tugged on my hand. "Grandma, can we come stay with you again soon? We had so much fun." I smiled, smoothing her hair. "Of course, honey, anytime you want." Henry's jaw tightened. "We should get going. Say goodbye, kids." They hugged me tightly, their little faces sad. I watched as they climbed into Henry's car, my heart heavy. As he prepared to leave, Henry paused and turned back to me. "Listen, Mom, about what they said. I don't want you getting any ideas. This was a one-time thing." I bristled, anger sparking. "Excuse me? You think I'm trying to turn them against you?" "Wouldn't be the first time," he muttered. I saw red. "How dare you? I have done nothing but love and support those children, which is more than I can say for you and Laura. You're so wrapped up in your own drama, you can't even see how much they're hurting." Henry's face flushed. "You have no idea what we're going through. No idea the stress, the pressure." "And whose fault is that?" I cut him off. "You chose this, Henry. You chose Laura and all the chaos that comes with her. Don't you dare put that on me." He stared at me, his eyes hard. "This isn't over, Mom. I won't let you poison my kids against me the way you did with Dad." With that, he got in the car and drove away, leaving me shaking with rage and hurt. I stood there, watching until the car disappeared from view, a cold determination settling over me. If Henry wanted to play hardball, then so be it. I was done playing nice. It was time to end this once and for all. The day of Laura's trial arrived, cold and gray. I dressed with care, choosing a somber black suit that radiated quiet authority. Nicole picked me up, her face set with grim determination. "Are you ready for this?" she asked as we drove to the courthouse. I nodded, my jaw tight. I've been ready for a long time. We met Jack on the steps, his expression serious. I've got a surprise for you, he said, leading us inside. I tracked down Brian Cox's family. They're here to testify. I felt a surge of gratitude and vindication. With their testimony, Laura's fate would be sealed. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. I took my seat behind the prosecutor's table, my heart pounding as Laura was led in, her wrists and ankles shackled. She looked pale and drawn, but her eyes still glittered with malice when they met mine. Henry sat stiffly beside her, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. I looked away, focusing on the judge as he called the court to order. The trial was grueling and emotional. The prosecutor laid out the evidence against Laura in detail, painting a picture of a cruel, calculating woman who would stop at nothing to get what she wanted. But it was the testimony of Brian Cox's family that truly sealed her fate. His mother, a frail silver-haired woman, spoke of her son's kind heart and bright future cut short. His sister wept as she recounted Laura's controlling and abusive behavior, how she had isolated Brian from his loved ones. Through it all, Laura sat stone-faced, her eyes cold and empty. Henry grew more and more agitated, his knee bouncing and his hands clenched into fists. Finally, it was time for the verdict. The jury filed back in, their faces somber. The foreman stood, clearing his throat. In the matter of the state versus Laura Berlin, on the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Laura's face drained of color, her mouth falling open in shock. Henry leaped to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor. "No," he shouted, his voice raw with anguish. "No, this is wrong. She's innocent." The judge banged his gavel, calling for order. "Mr. Wilson, control yourself, or I will have you removed from this courtroom." Henry subsided, collapsing back into his seat, his head in his hands. Laura turned to him, her expression desperate. "Henry, do something. You can't let them do this to me." But Henry wouldn't look at her, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The bailiff stepped forward, preparing to lead Laura away. I watched, a strange mix of emotions swirling within me. Triumph, yes, but also a hollow sort of sadness. It had come to this, my own son broken and humiliated, his life in ruins. As Laura was escorted out, she turned back, her eyes locking with mine. In that moment, I saw the depth of her hatred, the venom in her soul. "This isn't over," she hissed, her voice low and deadly. "I'll make you pay for this, I swear it." I met her gaze steadily, unflinching. "You've already paid, Laura. You made your choices, and now you'll face the consequences. Goodbye." With that, I turned and walked out, my head held high. It was over. Justice had been served. But even as relief washed over me, a sense of sadness lingered. I couldn't shake the lingering unease. Henry's anguished face haunted me, the devastation in his eyes. Had I gone too far? Had my quest for revenge blinded me to the collateral damage? I shook my head, pushing the doubts aside. No, Henry had made his bed, and now he would lie in it. He'd chosen Laura, chosen to turn his back on me. Now he would have to live with the fallout. I stepped out into the cold gray day, drawing my coat tighter around me. It was time to move on, to build a new life for myself. A life without Henry, without Laura's toxic influence. A life of my own making.